Okay, hello guys. Hello.
Hello,
Can you hear
Professor.
me? Hello.
Yes.
So you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it clear? Okay. Good. So we start. So from today on, we will have our topics. This is well the very beginning of the lectures. So last class, I just introduced how we will conduct the class and the kind of assessment of your performance. Okay, got some resonance. Just wait for a second. Okay, let's move on. As I said last week, so I'd like someone give us some news. Okay, so the latest news report. Okay, so we have anyone here? Hello, guys. Anyone? You have a news report?
That's me.
Okay. Yan Ting, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, do you mind turning on your camera?
Okay.
Okay, good.
I want to share my PPT.
Okay.
And wait me for a while.
Okay, so this is really the focus of the world today.
Wait for a while. I want to see my.
Okay, take your time.
Can you see my screen?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Yan Teng. Today I'm going to talk about the roots of the Ukraine's war, how the crisis developed. My talk will be divided into 4 parts, which are what's behind the Ukraine crisis and what does Putin want, how is the United States responding, and what at stake for Europe. On February 24, the Russian president announced the commencement of a special military operations in Ukraine. The incident is one of the most serious military crises since the end of the Cold War. First of all, What's behind the Ukraine crisis? Following the fall of the Soviet Union, NATO extended eastward eventually encompassing the majority of Europe's former communist countries. The Baltic countries of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, for example, were previously parts of the Soviet Union but are now all NATO members. NATO has also pushed hundreds of miles closer to Moscow in recent years. Bordering Russia directly is also stated in 2008 that it intended to allow Ukraine to join NATO one day. The demise of the Soviet Union, according to Mr. Putin, was a calamity because it deprived Russia of its proper place among international powers and left it at the mercy of the predatory West. He has spent his 22 years in power developing Russia's military and reasserting the country's geopolitical might. The idea of Ukraine joining NATO, according to Russian President Vladimir Putin, it is a huge threat to his country. Russia's criticisms about NATO have been louder as the country has grown more strong and formidable militarily. Second, what does Putin want? Mr. Putin is intent on turning the clock back more than 30 years, establishing a broad Russian dominate security zone resembling the power Moscow wielded in Soviet days, and attempting to reintegrate Ukraine into Russia's sphere of influence. In December, Russia made a series of written demands to NATO and the United States. Among the most important are guarantees that Ukraine will never join NATO, that NATO will withdraw its troops from Eastern European countries that have already joined in, and that the 2015 ceasefire in Ukraine will be implemented. But the West has brushed aside major demands while advising on other issues and threatening sanctions. Moscow's aggressive stance has also fueled nationalist sentiments in Ukraine, where citizens, militias prepare for a protector guerrilla war under Russian occupations. Third, how is the United States responding? President Biden stated in early December that his administration would not contemplate developing soldiers to fight in Ukraine for a variety of reasons, including the fact that Ukraine is not a member of NATO and hence is not obligated by its collective defense responsibilities. Instead, the US has deployed anti-tank and anti-aircraft weaponry to Ukraine, strengthened its military posture in NATO nations bordering Russia, and dispatched 7,000 extra soldiers to Europe. The Pentagon also ordered the development of an armored brigade combat team to Germany to appease vulnerable NATO allies in Eastern Europe. Administration's officials also warned that the US could support the Ukrainian insurgency. But the main stumbling block is financial. Mr. Biden announced new sanctions aimed at removing Russia's biggest bank and some oligarchs from the global financial system and preventing the country from importing American technology vital to it. Defense, aerospace, and maritime industry. The government has also imposed sanctions on companies behind energy pipeline, linking Russia and Germany. The US also frozen trillions of dollars in Russian assets, including funds controlled by Russian elites and their families. So next, what's at stake for Europe? At stake for Europe are the security structures that have helped maintain peace on the continent since World War II. Europeans were entirely divided over how to respond to various forms of Russian aggressions, a conflict that exposed rifts within the Europe and NATO. Besides that, Europe has an important trade relationship with Russia and will suffer far more from sanctions than the United States. It also relies on Russian gas suppliers. Last, my opinions on the Ukrainian conflicts is that military aggressions and the threat of force are divergence from global principles and values of honesty and love. It is nevertheless feasible to end the conflicts between Ukraine and Russia via negotiations. I believe there's but the two parties did not make an effort to address the issue via dialogue. Maybe negotiating the war may solve the problems, but at the cost of thousands of lives. This is my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So guys, do you have any kind of ideas or opinions? Any comments, questions? So anyone? Well, so this is a very hot issue today, but we can trace back to a very early time or the very early history. And we all know the capital of Ukraine is the birthplace of Russia. So it is very important for Russia in the history. But we know most important thing is, we can trace back to the Cold War years. Ukraine is, a member of the Soviet Union during the Cold War years. Only when in 1991, Soviet Union collapsed. So a lot of the members of the Soviet Union got independent, and some countries joined NATO. And NATO, as you mentioned, this is an institute or an organization, a very, very important organization, which actually was termed or um, which was used to confront Soviet Union during the Cold War years. We all know the Cold War started in 1946, and the NATO was established in 1948. And later, there was another military organization established by Soviet Union. It was called the Warsaw Pact. I wonder if you know this. So there were two military organizations which confronted each other during the Cold War years. NATO was led by USA and European countries like, let's say, France, Germany, UK, are the most important countries and big powers. While Warsaw Pact, it was led by Soviet Union. So those were the two organizations, military organizations. And there was anyway a kind of a balance. Although there was a Cold War, the kind of a conflict between different, political systems, or we say ideologies. One is capitalism, and the other is socialism. So that was the kind of a confrontation between the two different social or political systems. Um, well, in 1991, when Soviet Union collapsed, the Warsaw Pact also collapsed. So there was no Warsaw Pact. Only there was NATO. NATO was still there, and 15 members of the Soviet Union they organized the kind of a union of independent states. So there were 15, including like Ukraine, the stance. We have several 5 stance, right? And also we have like Lithuania, we have Estonia, Latvia, and so on. So those were actually the original members of the Soviet Union. But later, those members got independent, and some of the members joined NATO, like Estonia, like Latvia, and the Baltic, and so on. Not Baltic, Latvia, Estonia. So they joined the NATO, like also Lithuania. So we say NATO was in the past years was approaching Russia. So that was kind of a danger sensed by Russia. So Putin made it clear that Ukraine should not join NATO. Otherwise, there will be kind of conflict. So that is, well, the war or the conflict today we have. Of course, the two countries they are having talks today, and they had 3 rounds of talks without any result till now. But we all hope that the war can be over as soon as possible, because it claims a lot of lives and cause a lot of damage to the people or the world. But anyway, we can say we can talk another thing is that the order, like the kind of world order or the European order in this area. So what kind of order? Just like today, we are going to talk about the Chinese world order in history in ancient time. So the so-called order is the kind of distribution of the power. Like Russia, it is a big power, and then NATO can be also regarded as a power, although it is an organization. In France and Germany, so those are the powers. So the order is the kind of a distribution of the power, or the kind of a structure of the distribution of the powers. This is can be kind of a balance. When the balance is broken, and then there would be conflict. So this is what we can perceive, like from the international relations theories, like anyone who break or anyone who breaks the balance, and then probably there will be confrontations. So in the Cold War years, there was a very kind of we call the terrified balance, because the two big powers, USA and the Soviet Union, they both had nuclear weapons, and that caused a kind of a balance. So no one dared to launch attacks against the other. So they kept a kind of a balance. But today, with the expansion of NATO, so the kind of a balance in Europe is being broken. So that's why actually here is the conflict. So this is what we are talking about order. And in ancient China or in Asia, in Asia, in the history, there was also the kind of a system or the kind of order we call the international order in East Asia, or we call the Huayi order or the tributary system, which helped to keep the peace or stability in Asia for quite a long time. So today we can trace back to the history of China to talk about the kind of a system or the kind of order in East Asia, mainly dominated by China. So before my lecture, let's invite our presenters today. So we have two presenters, right? I just wonder if you two guys got ready. So we have Louis Wei Xin, and also we have Han Ye
Professor,
Ren. Yes.
we decided to change our topic and we already told that to the um assistant of this class.
Okay. Okay. So you decided to switch to some other topics.
Yeah.
Okay. So today we don't have any presentation. Okay. All right. It doesn't matter. So I will share my screen. Okay, guys, do you have any questions concerning the Russia and the Ukraine conflict? Any question? Okay, okay. So probably later we will have some kind of knowledge, like the kind of international relations theories, how to explain the kind of a conflict in the international relations. So this can be explained from the or by the realism in international relations, because security or survival is the top priority of a country, uh, or the kind of a security, because we say in the world there is no top government, so all the countries are just kind of in the circumstance of anarchy, anarchy. So no top government to rule the world. So each and every state, they it has to be responsible for its own safety or its own security. How to maintain the kind of a security, especially survival. So you have to be strong, you have to be powerful, and if you have the kind of a capability to defend yourself or to defeat the others, to keep safe, to maintain your survival. So this is the kind of a theory of realism. So you're starting by building up yourself, and you become strong, powerful, and then you can defend yourself, and then you feel safe. But otherwise, you'll be threatened, or you'll feel threatened by the others. Okay, so this is, well, anyone wants to be strong, um, especially when the two countries, if they are kind of hostile to each other, and then they will be kind of in a state of arms race. So each one aims at building up itself, and then you increase your power. Your increase of the power will pose danger or threat to the other one. So the other one, in turn, will build itself up to increase its own power. So this is kind of like the cycle of competition. So this is what we call the arms race. Both countries, they try to increase their power, but uh, in effect or as a result, no one feels safe. Even you are very strong, you are very powerful. The more you are powerful, probably the more you feel being threatened. So this is called the security dilemma. Okay, anyway, so uh, we start by the Chinese world order. So where's my okay? Okay. Can you see my PPT?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we talk a little bit about China's history, but mainly China's foreign relations or China's interactions with the surrounding countries or states. But firstly, because this course is titled the foreign relations, so we have several terms to make it clear. Like we always have the terms like oh, do we need to record the class? Hello, guys. So is it necessary for us to record the class? Okay, we have to wait for a second. Where do I start recording? Right. Okay. So those terms are very familiar to us, right? We have diplomacy, foreign policy, foreign relations, international relations, and so on. So sometimes it kind of confusing, like what is diplomacy, what is foreign policy, and also foreign relations. Are they similar or are they different, and so on? So a little bit explanation, like the terms by some scholars or some even some diplomats. Diplomacy is the basic term, especially it is used widely in international relations. Like today, we have Russia and Ukraine. They are having talks. So those kind of talks or negotiations is the kind of a practice of diplomacy. So that is we can say the diplomatic um activities, the talks in the negotiations. So basically speaking, diplomacy refers to the kind of activity of the sovereign state by the kind of officials who can represent their country. They practice the kind of policies. They practice or they conduct negotiations, talks in a peaceful way. So diplomacy is the kind of opposite to like a war or military actions or violence. So this is we can say a peaceful way to conduct the foreign policy, to interact with the other countries or states. Basically speaking, only the sovereign states can have diplomacy. Today we have like more than 200 countries or the political entities, but in the UN there are only 193 member states. So those 193 member states are the sovereign states. That's why actually in the UN Charter it is addressed like the sovereignty and territory should be maintained, or the integrity of the sovereignty and the territory should be maintained, should be respected, and should not be violated. So this is also the stance or the policies of the sovereign states. Like China also claims that each and every sovereign state should not be, their integrity of the sovereignty and the territory should not be violated. Okay. Okay. Anyway, so diplomacy is the kind of conduct of the sovereign state. So you can read this. This one is by Nicholson, Harold Nicholson, in a very early book. The book is titled Diplomacy. He said that diplomacy is the management of the international relations. Well, so here it mentioned like the international relations. So what is international relations? We can have this term a little bit later. By negotiation, the method by which these relations are adjusted by ambassadors and envoys. So this is the officials which can represent their countries during the kind of a negotiation or the talks, especially like ambassadors. Ambassadors are the diplomats which station in the capital of the other country in an embassy, and also envoys. So those are the professional diplomats. Like the delegation members, like from Russia and from Ukraine, probably they are not professional diplomats. They are just the members which represent the two sides to have talks. But if we say ambassadors and envoys, they are professional diplomats. Okay, so this is the kind of the business or art of the diplomatist. Okay, anyway, so there are some other definitions, like this guy. His name is called Sir Ernest Settle. This is also a very famous guy who practiced diplomacy. He was the kind of a diplomat. He said that diplomacy is the application of intelligence and the tact to the conduct of relations between the governments of the independent states. Here he used the term independent states. We say all the sovereign states are independent states, extending sometimes also to their relations with vassal states. Today we talk about the China's or the Chinese world order, and there were a lot of vassal states in the history. So we know what are the vassal states. So you have any idea what state is a vassal state? Anyone knows this term? What is a vassal state? Can you say something? Vassal state probably is not an independent state. It is a state, but it was kind of dominated or influenced or interfered by some other state, because this vassal state is very small, is weak, and it could not have its own diplomacy. It could not rule its own country. So the kind of a state, the vassal state, has subordinate to some other country. So this is called a vassal state. Like in the history, there are a lot of countries colonized by the powers. So those countries being colonized, or those countries colonized by the strong powers, could be the vassal states. While in China, in the history, the surrounding countries like Vietnam, like Thailand, Cambodia, and some other countries, they were not colonized by China, but they were subordinated to China. So they paid tributes to China, and they were also regarded as vassal states. Okay, so the conduct of a business between states by peaceful means. So this is the kind of explanation, and some other terms like Diplomacy is concerned with the management of the relations between states and between states and other actors. Maybe not only states, because today we have uh, diversified actors, not only states. Probably there are like the organizations, international organizations like NATO, we mentioned just now, like a UN. UN is also a very important actor today in the world. So not only state actors, but there are a lot of non-state actors like the NGOs. So NGOs are much more involved in the diplomacy today than before. Okay, so from a state perspective, diplomacy is concerned with advising, shaping, and implementing foreign policy. So this is the kind of means by which states, through their formal or other representatives, the so-called formal means the ambassadors or envoys or diplomats, so as well as other actors, articulate, coordinate, and secure particular or wider interests using correspondence, private talks, exchanges of view, lobbying, visits, threats, and other related activities. Pay attention to this word, threats. So we said that just now, diplomacy is a peaceful way to conduct the relationship. But sometimes probably there will be threats applied by some states in order to achieve their purpose. Okay, so let's move on. Basically speaking, we say diplomacy is the kind of way of conducted relations with other members or other states in a by talks or negotiations by the representatives of the states. Okay, so what is a foreign policy? Sometimes the foreign policy is also, mixed with diplomacy. Like, okay, good. Good question. Yes, IMF is also a very important actor today. So all the international organizations, I mean here like we call the governmental international organizations, are the actors today in the world. So we have IMF, we have World Bank, we have UN, we have NATO, we have ASEAN, we have European Union, we have African Union, we have the WFO, and so on. Quite a lot. So we can list a number of such kind of organizations. They all play very important roles today in maintaining the stability, the peace, or to tackle some kind of tough issues. For example, we have the other one, like the WHO, right? During these 2 years, the WHO is working very hard to tackle the pandemic, right? So it is also a very important actor today. So we say the states, they are yes, actors, and also the very basic, very fundamental state actors. But nowadays we do have the actors which are not states, some other kind of forums. So WHO, UN, those are the governmental international organizations. And also we have NGOs, those so-called non-governmental organizations. We also have quite a lot of NGOs, like the Greenpeace, like the Red Cross, the Amnesty, and so on. So we also have quite a lot of NGOs. They are also the actors today in the world. So they are also involved in the international affairs, in the international issues. For example, like the Greenpeace, very active in promoting the kind of environment in recent years, in promoting the kind of a climate governance and so on. Okay, so foreign policy, sometimes in Chinese we also use the word 外交, and also like a diplomacy is translated into Chinese as 外交, but sometimes foreign policy is also termed as 外交. So the similar expression in Chinese, but they are different. So what is the foreign policy? Well, foreign policy is kind of the framework or the plan of a state in terms is foreign relations, or how to deal with its foreign relations, or how to deal with its relations with the other countries. What are the objectives, or what are the purposes? So basically speaking, like I hear a quote from the Britannica. It said that the general objectives that guide the activities and the relationships of one state in its interactions with other states. So some other explanations, objectives and activities in relation to its interactions with other states, unions. Here, union means probably the organizations and other political entities. Political entities. So nowadays we do have a lot of political entities. They are not independent states. So that's why we say there are more than 200 states and political entities. So whether bilaterally or multilateral platforms. Okay, so the so-called bilateral means one country to the other. So this is bilateral, two countries, two actors. While multilateral means involves at least 3 actors. Okay. So this is another quotation from the kind of a website. It says that foreign policy dictates how a country will act with respect to other countries, politically, socially, economically, and militarily, and to some extent, how it behaves towards non-state actors. So the foreign policy can be known as international relations policy, or simply diplomacy. So here I said that sometimes it's confusing, the mixed, or sometimes used one way or another. So like here it says that simply diplomacy, but my idea is that diplomacy is quite different from foreign policy. Diplomacy is the kind of a practice of the foreign policy, so they are different. So it seems likely that foreign policy in some form has been around since the early days of humanity on the plains of Africa, when large tribes would presumably interact from time to time without engaging in all-out war. So in the very early history, there were interactions between the tribes because there were no states in very early history. There were tribes, or there were groups of people in the different tribes or different groups of people. So they interacted with each other. So probably that can be called the foreign relations. But basically, we don't use the word diplomacy. Okay, anyway, today, so foreign policy is handled by foreign ministers, ambassadors, or the Secretary of State. So this is a specific term used in USA because the foreign ministry is called the Secretary of State or the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is the minister of the foreign affairs of the USA. So the institute is called the Department of State of USA. So the head of the department is called the secretary. So it just the similar term as the foreign minister. Okay, so this is a foreign policy. So it involves objectives or goals, strategies, measures, management methods, guidelines. So this term, I think this is a very good term, guidelines. The principles, the framework, the plan of a state to deal with the other states, the other actors. Okay. So we can say like this diplomacy is the tool of the foreign policy and war alliances and international trade may also be manifestations of it. So we can say in order to achieve a lot of objectives, you can have the kind of diplomatic activities. So diplomacy is the way to achieve your foreign policy, to conduct the foreign policy. In another term, foreign relations. So in many cases, foreign relations is, mixed with foreign policy. So we say China's foreign relations, probably sometimes we refer to China's foreign policy. While we say China's foreign policy, probably we interpret as China's foreign relations, but slightly different. So foreign relations means, well, a country's relations with other countries. It can include many aspects like the economy, like a political relationship, like a cultural relationship, the trade, the military relationship, and so on. So any kind of a relationship with the other country can be called the foreign relations. So this is a very wide meaning or the wide sense of the foreign relations. But sometimes it was used or it is used or interpreted from a very narrow perspective, specifically referred to the kind of diplomatic relations with the other country. Okay, so this one, international relations. So this is a very wide range. It doesn't refer to any specific country. It refers to like the relationship among the actors. So there are quite a lot of actors in the world, and so they have interactions. They have all kinds of relations. So those are called the international relations. So just as the quotation says here, international relations is a multidisciplinary field that seeks to understand a variety of global issues, foreign affairs, and the geopolitical interactions of nations and states within the international system. So international relations draws upon the expertise from diverse fields of social science, including geography, history, sociology, political science, economics, anthropology, and law. Not only that, there are some other fields like the finance, right? Like the military and so on. And today we also have like the energy, health, and so on. Okay, so those are the basic terms for us to understand, the foreign relations or the policy, foreign policy or diplomacy. So we have some idea. So basically the this course just centers on China's foreign relations in a political sense. So mainly we focus on the political relationship. We don't talk too much about it like the trade, the finance, the military, or culture, and so on. So we uh, focus more on the diplomatic relationship between China and some other states or actors. Okay, so much for the terms. I think we need a break. So guys, we take a break. Okay, so guys, if you have any question, you can just use your microphone. So well, this is kind of a free on class. You can cut me off, and you can raise your question, or you can give your comments and so on. So just feel free. Okay, guys, let's move on. So you can see the PPT. Okay, great. We all know that China has a very long history. Sometimes we say like 5,000 years of history. So we can start well from like 2029 BC. Today we just introduce the history or China's foreign relations starting from like a very ancient time till 1840. Because next period we will have the some other explanations of how China was involved in the international issues or how China entered the international family. So just as the title suggested, China's entrance into the international family. Well, and also we can know, like in this period, why China kept to itself, why China, refused to have kind of relations with the Western European countries, especially when UK and France and some other countries when they came to China. So the Chinese government refused to have any kind of official relationship with them. Okay, so China had a lot of dynasties. So those are like here listed, like Xia dynasty, Shang, and so on. So those dynasties are the kind of periods when China had the kind of unitary or China. There's the united China. But there were also periods which, during which China was divided into, some maybe more states. Uh, like after Han Dynasty, there were periods of, um, well, several like states, not a united China. So during this period of time, we have like Zhou, a very important period, uh, and Qin, Han, Sui Tang, a very important period. Song, of course, a very important period, but Song, we have two songs. One is called the North Song, and the other is called South Song. Two periods when China faced the threat from the north. And then last two dynasties, Ming and Qing, which laid the foundation or which finally decided the tributary system or the Chinese order, the Chinese uh, world order in East Asia. Okay. So let's just look how the tributary system was established gradually or step by step. Okay. So this is Xia. This is the starting of the period, and after Xia, there's Shang and but we talk about a little bit about the Zhou dynasty, which lasted from 770 BC to 221 BC, around 500 years, and also it can divide into two periods. One is called the spring autumn period, and the other is called the warring states period. So during this period, we did have an emperor called, like the Zhou dynasty, but there were quite a lot of states, more than 100 states during these two periods. Like here, well, we have the Huanghe, the Yellow River, and here were some states, very small states. And basically, we have like like Qin here. I just have the Chinese map, and then we have Lu. Lu means today's Shandong, and then also Qi. Qi and Lu are today's Shandong, and here is Yan. This is Beijing. in ancient time. There's a small state called the Yan state. Those were very small states under the Zhou dynasty. Those small states, they had very frequent interactions with each other, very frequent. It was just like today's international relations. Of course, those small states were not today's sovereign states because those states they had one similar emperor, which had the rights to rule all the states. But on the other hand, they were also very independent. Besides, they pay tributes to the emperor, or they had the emperor in name, but the kind of head of the states, they did have the independent rights to rule the state, and they could have a relationship independently with other states. So it was quite like today's international relations, diplomatic relations, diplomatic activities, cultural relations, into even like alliance today. So the spring autumn period is it started from 770 BC to 476 BC. So just around 300 years. And then there had another period called the Warring States period. It started from 475 BC and ended till 221 BC. So those two periods had the name we call 春秋 in Chinese, and also 战国, because it was named after the two books. One was called the 春秋, the book compiled by some historical officials in Lu, and some said that this book was compiled by Confucius. Another one was a book compiled in Han Dynasty called the Warring States, kind of like a. So the two periods were named after the two books. But anyway, the second period we call the states in the period of a Warring States, or we call it just a Warring States period. So there rose 7 states, very strong states. Here we have like Qin, Qi, Yan, and Chu, Han, Wei, Zhao. So those were very strong states, and frequent fights among the states. And there were also the frequent interactions, the negotiations, talks, alliance, international meetings, and so on. We call the international meetings, but the conferences among the states, very frequent communications. So to some degree, so this period, we say from 春秋 till 战国, those 2 periods, it will to some degree manifested the kind of the very typical international relationship. But they were not the kind of we say the foreign relationships, but to each state, like a Qi, it could has its foreign relationship with like a Yan, like a Zhao, like a Wei, and so on. Okay. So when there was the united dynasty, so its foreign relationship mainly refers to its a relationship with its neighbors, or maybe its neighbors were not like the today's states. There were tribes. There were some small groups of people or even ethnic groups, or like the nomads and so on. So in the first important dynasty, we say was Qin. After the kind of a fight, the kind of a separation or something. So Qin united all the other states, and then there was one state called Qin or Qin dynasty. So they had the kind of a relationship with Korea, Japan, Southeast Asian countries, and then expanded to India, Persia, Arabian countries, and then to Europe, East Africa, and North Africa. So it started from Qin Dynasty. Quite a long period. It's not only it not probably it was not the kind of a case in Qin Dynasty, but just starting from Qin Dynasty. So the relationship with the other states, the other countries, uh, well, became more frequent. So let's just say something like we say we have uh, during this long period from Qin Dynasty till 1840. So we can divide it into four periods. And the first period we can say from Qin till Han Dynasty, lasted from 221 BC to 220 AD, when Han ended. So around 400 years. Well, you know this, like the warriors in Qin Dynasty. If you ever been to Xi'an, probably can found that the warriors. Okay. And this is the main relationship during this period, Qin and Han, probably the relationship with this nomad. It was kind of nomad, so they migrated as the changes of the season. So we call Xiongnu. Probably you know this nomad, you know this tribe. So in order to defend the invasion or the kind of disturbance of the Xiongnu, so they're built the Great Wall, and you all know like China's Great Wall, right? So in Qin Dynasty, they had a very the long miles of the Great Wall built to defend against the Xiongnu. Okay, but during the spring autumn period, in the warring state period, they also built the wall, the great, but not so long, or not complete project like in Qin Dynasty. Okay, so this is if you look at the map, so this is the territory of Qin Dynasty. It's kind of smaller than today. So there were a lot of minorities around Qin, or we say China, or the ancient China. So this is the Great Wall, and this is the South China Sea, and the East Sea. So this is the desert, or the plateau here. Okay. So what is the kind of a relationship, like any kind of communications with the other minorities or the neighbors? So mainly during this period, the kind of defense against the Xiongnu in the north in this period, in this area. Not too much, we say, the cultural communications with the other neighbors. And then later, so we have Han. When it came to Han Dynasty, so there were very frequent communications with the neighbors, even to the far west, with like a Roman Empire, Persia, so the most important, event was the Silk Road in Han Dynasty. And here, you can find that the expansion of the territory of Han Dynasty. I wonder if you noticed here, there had the state. So we have a Korean students, and you all know this. So this is a Korean peninsula, but the name is called Goguryeo. So there was a state, and there had some kind of a relationship between Han Dynasty and the state here. Well, this is the beautiful lady married to the leader of the Xiongnu in order to maintain peace between the two sides. Because in Han Dynasty, this is kind of we say the political marriage to ease the tension between Han Dynasty and Xiongnu. Okay, so there were some kind of features with the neighbors in this period. China mainly conducted the relations with Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, especially in Han Dynasty. And later in East Han Dynasty, there were communications with West Asia and Europe. So we have like the Silk Road. This is a great breakthrough in the history for China's foreign relations. The guy called Zhang Qian, he traveled a long journey to West Asia, and even he arrived at Europe, and he brought like the Chinese products, the local products, like the silk, and brought some products or the crops or the plants from West Asia and Europe. Okay, so this is the ancient Silk Road by Zhang Qian. There were frequent communications and exchanges with Japan and Korea during the Han Dynasty. We can have a more explanation like a little bit later. So there were official relations with ancient Rome and Roman Empire. So in Chinese we call 大清. So the Roman Empire is a very strong empire. So during this period of time, there were only like a political and economic relations and cultural communications. So it's not like today we have, like the diplomatic relationship. So there were not diplomatic relations, only like the interactions or communications to exchange like the products. And also this is kind of a way to spread China's culture to the other parts outside of China. A lot of countries were influenced by Chinese culture, by Chinese economy, and also Chinese products. And also from this time on, there began to have the vassal states, or some countries began to pay tribute to China. So this is the very starting period of the tributary system. That's why we say the tributary system. So a lot of the states, they pay tribute to China, the ancient China, to maintain the kind of close relationship. Okay. And then there were also kind of a civil activities. This I just got a picture from a movie. And then, so this is the Silk Road. So this is the starting place in China. We call Chang'an. This is the capital city of Xi'an today, of Shanxi province, Xi'an. So today's Xi'an. So Zhang Qian started from Chang'an. So this is the capital of ancient China in Han Dynasty. And then this is the route he took. So this is in the north. I traveled a long way to like here, a lot of names listed here, but we don't have the names today like this. So those were the names in ancient time. But basically, we can say he arrived at West Asia in Europe. So still we can find that Xiongnu had the control of the large area. So when Zhang Qian traveled to the west, he was detained. He was caught by Xiongnu and was detained for some time. Later, he escaped from Xiongnu and continued his travel to the West Asia and Europe. So, in order to be in order not to be caught again by Xiongnu, so when he went back to China, he took the southern route, not the original one. But unfortunately, when he was back to China, he was caught again by Xiongnu. But anyway, he figured out the ways to escape and finally went back to China. Okay, so this is a very great travel for China to expand its communications with the other parts, other side of China. So this is the land route, or we can say the land Silk Road. There was also the kind of a maritime route during this period of time, the kind of communications, the navigation. This map shows that the maritime route. There were three ports in Dandong, in Liaoning province, and also in Shandong province. And then there were also in Guangdong, Guangxi, parts of the maritime route. But it's not like today's we call the Silk One Belt and One Road. There were only only the Silk Road on the land, but there did have some kind of a trade or communications on the sea or through the maritime route. Okay, so according to the historical book called the Book of Han, a very famous historical book in China. So it recorded a lot of events in the history. And according to this book, the various tribes of Japan had already entered into tributary relationships with China by the 1st century. So this is a very early time for China to have the kind of tribes to pay tribute to China. So Japan was one of them. However, Japan ceased to present tribute to China and left the tributary system during the Heian period without damaging economic ties. So here we should made it clear that the tributary relationship. So why the states they pay tribute to China? Only because they are small or because they were weak? So it's not the only reason. Because the Chinese emperor thought that China was the most powerful state or the most powerful country under the heaven or in the world. It can govern it. So the Chinese emperor governed the world on behalf of the heaven. So to pay tribute is in a way to be recognized as the subordination to China, or to recognize the authority of the Chinese emperor. The Chinese emperor did not interfere in any affairs of the state paying tribute to China. So only they kind of China received maybe a very small amount of tribute, but those countries paying tribute, they could gain a lot from China. So the Chinese emperor was very generous. So uh, he would give a lot to those who pay tributes. So this is a way to maintain the economic relationship or to maintain the trade. So that's why it is said that although Japan left the tributary system, but it did not damage the economic ties. So this is a way for those we call maybe the vassal states to gain interest, economic interest from China. While for China, it is a way to maintain its authority. So although Japan eventually returned to the tributary system during the Muromachi period in the reign of Ashikaga Yoshimitsu, it did not recommence presenting tribute. So later, Japan did not pay tribute anymore. But beside Japan, there was a very small kingdom called Ryukyu. I wonder if you know this place, Ryukyu. Today, it is Osaka. Well, there is a military base of the USA in this place. Ryukyu, it was a very small kingdom, and it paid tributes to China and also paid tributes to Japan later. But when Japan conducted the reform we call the Meiji Restoration, Japan began to become stronger, and then it annexed or it invaded Ryukyu Island. So from that time on, Ryukyu became part of Japan. Okay, anyway, so we just move on. And then, according to the Korean historical document, I don't know how to pronounce this, Samguk Goguryeo sent a diplomatic representative to the Han Dynasty in 32, and the Emperor Guangwu, or this is the emperor we call Guangwu of Han, officially acknowledged Goguryeo with a title. So this is the starting of the bilateral relationship between China and Korea. But at that time, it was not called Korea, so Goguryeo. Okay, anyway, so there were also like relationships between China and India, like so most important, there were the cultural and economic communications. Okay. So the Silk Road bridged the cultural communication between China and the West. It promoted the economy and the technology exchanges between the two sides. It was also a way to communicate with West Asia and Europe after Han Dynasty. Okay, we just move on. So this period, I think the most important thing for the regional order here is that there were states paying tribute to China. So this is the kind of a starting of the tributary system. And then we have another important period we call the Sui and the Tang period. So those two states, or sorry, those two periods, during those two periods, China was very strong. And you can see that the territory, it expanded quite a lot. So this is the territory of Tang, the grain port, or marked by grain. Those were the territories of Tang Dynasty. The most important achievement was that the kind of economic and cultural exchange. There was still the Silk Road, but there were two, like today's one Belt and one road. So one was on the land. You can find that marked by with red color. So those were the routes on the land, and also there were like the routes on the sea here. You can find that, and also you have like the blue marked with blue like that. So during the period of Tang, so China was very, very prosperous, and there were kind of relations with like India, like Iran, like the Southeast Asian countries, uh, Japan, Korea, and so on. So I wonder if you could read this Chinese. It was not still Korea. Okay. So this is called the Silla. And Thailand was always subordinate to China as a vassal or a tributary state since the Sui dynasty. Uh, after, let's say, a period of separation in China. So there, had the united China again, called the Sui dynasty. And then during this period, we have, the one of the Southeast Asian countries, which became the vassal state or a vassal to China. And they lasted till Taiping Rebellion. It's around 1851 of the Qing dynasty in the mid 19th century. And also, like later, we have Vietnam. And this is the map of Korean Peninsula. So you have like a goggle reel. You have like a Silla and also back here. So 3 kingdoms on the peninsula. And later, with the help of the Tang Dynasty, Silla defeated the other 2 kingdoms in a united Korean Peninsula. So there started the very close relationship between Tang and the Silla. There had for foreign students. There were like the exchange of music, handcraft, trade between the 2 sides. So the tributary relationship between China and Korea was established during the 3 kingdoms of Korea. In practice, it was only a diplomatic formality to strengthen legitimacy and gain access to cultural goods from China. So the purpose, just the kind of a symbolization, I think here. So just a kind of a form to pursue like the interest or real interest. But we know for quite a long time, China and Korea maintained a very, very close relationship, maybe the most intimate relationship that with any other states around China. Until in 1894, China was defeated by Japan. So Korea became the kind of a colony of Japan, colonized by Japan after 1895, because China lost the kind of the relationship or the dominance of Korea. Okay, and this is the relationship with Japan. So this monk traveled several times, 6 times. He traveled to Japan to spread, to bridge the kind of a cultural communication. And of course, there were envoys from Japan to China. A lot of students, they came to Chang'an to learn the Chinese culture, to learn the architecture, the music, and even tea. How to make a tea and so on. Political system. If you have been to Japan, probably you can find that there are still like the buildings, the kind of how what kind of say the kind of way of um, building is very similar with Chinese architecture. And then this map shows that this is the picture to show that a lot of envoys from the other states came to China to pay tribute. So this is the Chinese emperor, just to show that there were a lot of vassal states and the relationship between China and some other states. So we have like this tribute relationship. Okay. And then we move on quickly like this. We have this is the third period, Song Dynasty and Yuan Dynasty. I just said that there were two periods, North Song and South Song. So during this period, China was faced with the threat from the north, from the Liao, firstly called Liao, and then later in South Song, it became Jin. So they had fights with China. So the Chinese soldiers, the army was defeated by Liao and Jin. So they moved southward. But during this period of time, there had some kind of a equal relationship. It's not like a vassal state. There were kind of an equal relationship with the North states, like Liao and Jin. They had a treaty after the war. But there were frequent trade relationships with the Southeastern Asian countries like Indonesia, some other states in this part, and also the kind of a trade on the sea was prosperous. And during the period of Song, China had the very advanced technology, like like the powder, like the kind of the technology of a print, and the compass. That the compass. So very advanced technology, and even China could build the biggest ship in the world in this period. Okay, so last period, which we say finally decided the tributary system, this Ming and the Qing dynasty. So this is kind of a very important shift of the communications with the outer world or the other parts of the world, from Asia to the Western countries, especially. Not only, the relationship was limited to Asia now, so it expanded to some other parts of the world, but unfortunately, the policy changed. So before Ming and before Ming Dynasty, so it was the kind of an open door policy, frequent communications, interactions with other states. But in late Ming, so the government began to assume a policy of a closed door. So especially when the coastal cities were disturbed by the pirates from Japan. So the government ordered to ban trade on the sea. So gradually, China began to adopt a closed door policy, especially when it came to Qing Dynasty. So shut the door to the world. And then also from prosperity to recession. So we say China was proud of its economy, but compared with the Western countries, in the Western countries, they had the Industrial Revolution. So they began to develop very fast, while China was a country of agriculture. So it was not so developed during this period. And then from strong to weak, from superior to inferior. But in 1800s, the GDP volume of China still accounted for 30% of the whole world. So it still was the largest economy in 1800s. But the fact is that China began to recess, or the Western countries, they began to develop very fast, and also they began to colonize the other parts of the world. And then they came to China. Okay. Anyway, so this is the territory of the Ming Dynasty. And so this is the Qing Dynasty. You can see the very early period of the Qing Dynasty, a very large piece of land. You find that here you have like a, so today a lot of the places were later occupied by Russia. When the Western countries came to China and Russia came to China, so it got a lot of land from China. Today is still controlled, or were parts of Russia today. And you have like Xinjiang, Qinghai, Xizang, and became like actually. So this is a large territory, and even in the southern part of China. Okay, so another event in Ming Dynasty. This is the navigation by Zheng He, the great official in Ming Dynasty. He traveled 7 times to the Indian Ocean. He arrived at Africa, and well, just the kind of a way to show the greatness of China for kind of a political purpose, not for trade. Just a way to show the prosperity of China. So this is the routes, the maritime routes of his navigation. So the places he arrived at, even like Mediterranean Sea, the coast of African countries. Okay, so his expedition, his fleet returned with foreign envoys bearing tribute. Foreign states received gifts in return to build tributary relationships between the Ming Dynasty and the foreign kingdoms. So this is why we say during Ming and Qing Dynasty, early Qing, or the Ming, late Ming and early Qing Dynasty, it finally decided the tributary system, because a lot of countries, they paid tribute to China for economic benefit. The tribute activities occupy several chapters in the 24 histories. This is the historical book in China, very important, very kind of like archives, historical records in a long history of China. So during this book, they are recorded a lot of activities, the tribute activities. Quickly. So the Portuguese and Spanish, especially Portuguese, came to Macau, and Netherlands arrived at Taiwan. Okay, this is Russia. Had a fight with China in 1685 and 1686, respectively. And later, the two countries they had the treaty, the kind of equal treaty between China and Russia. Okay, anyway, so this is a well for this long period, because China was a strong, prosperous, rich, uh, well, flourish in its culture. So there had the kind of a world view of the Chinese people. So China was regarded as the center of the world. Like this, we have like China was in the very center. If we take this as the globe, and China was located in the center, or was called the Middle Kingdom. So those were different groups of the people, foreign people. Some were influenced by the Chinese culture, and some were not influenced by Chinese culture, but had a friendly relationship with China. And the outer layer were like the enemies coming to China for like benefits by the kind of invasion, by fighting with China. So, and this, well, the mainly the China had this tributary system to conduct the relationship with the other countries. So geographically, the Chinese officials or Chinese people thought that China was in the center of the world. And culturally, the Chinese people thought that they were well educated, much more educated than the other countries. So a lot of Westerners or the other groups of people, they were called barbarians. And also, like the we see the geographically, culturally, ideologically. So China was in the center of the world. So this is the kind of way to show the relationship. And then another form to show the relationship. Okay. So China often received tribute from states under the influence of Confucian civilization. So Confucianism was very popular. So that China took this as the guiding principle or the kind of a civilization. And this gave the Chinese people much proud. So and the Chinese emperor, so they received the tribute and to give Chinese products to those countries in just for the kind of recognition of the Chinese emperor's authority. Like the states here listed in history, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Cambodia, Borneo, Indonesia, and Central Asia. The system also called like Jimi. So this is the Chinese meaning, Chinese words, and also Chinese pinyin, Jimi. So this is the way to how does it to maintain the kind of a relationship by giving some benefits to the other countries. And also 册封, what is the 册封? So the other countries, they pay tribute to China, and then the Chinese emperor just recognize the leader of the other states, or we call 朝贡, means paying tribute. So this is the Chinese tribute system, or the Chinese world order, or the regional order in this area. Pay attention. Next period, we'll maybe we can talk a little bit more about the tributary system. This tributary system is not a equal system because China was sitting on the top. So the other countries, they were vassal states. So those vassal states were subordinated to China. They could not get the equal treatment as the kind of as China. So this is a kind of unequal relationship, and also governed by a lot of complicated procedures and ratio performances. Okay, so this is the historical development of the tributary system and the relationship of China with the surrounding countries in a long period. Okay, so guys, I will forward this PPT to the WeChat group for your reference. And from the next period, from next week, we will have the first group of representation and also the news report. If you decide to take this course, so please do take attendance. Attend the class because the monitor will take the attendance and it will be part of your assessment of your final score. And also, I forwarded the syllabus, so please read carefully the syllabus and get clear about the requirements and also the assignments for the course. If you have any questions, just contact me in the WeChat group, or you can email me. All right. Okay. So please,
Professor,
yes.
ask a question now.
Okay.
Is the news report the thing that that we did in the beginning of the class today, like a volunteer presentation?
No. News is must.
Oh,
Means you have to do the news report as a group.
oh,
So in the schedule list, so each group is sent the date to do the news report.
so it's the same topic that we made with
No,
the presentation, right?
no. Just like today's news report by
Okay.
Yan Ting. So you can collect the news in the world, the latest news, what is happening around us in the world.
So we choose a news and write about it with
Uh,
our own words.
Yeah, yes. You probably you read the newspaper and you go over like you visited the website and you collect the news and then you give the news report briefly.
With the group.
Let's see, just a brief news. So we have the group. Each group we have 2 or 3 students. That depends on how many students we have. If we have so from the next period, we just have 13 topics. And then probably if we have 26 students, and then so we have 2 students each group. But if we have more than 26, probably there will be 3 students in a group.
Okay.
But at least we have each topic should be chosen besides today, except today's topic. So from the second topic,
Okay.
and we have 13 left. So I hope that each topic is taken.
And it's the volunteer news report. We can just make PPT and present to the presentation.
No. We don't do volunteer news report. So we have groups to do the news report. So on each class, we have one group to do the news. You don't need to do the PPT. It's just the kind of a oral report. That's okay.
What was the presentation that someone did at the beginning of the class? Was that the
of course, it will be great if you do the PPT, but for you to save your time, you can just report without the PPT to the class.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
And
Okay,
Professor,
any
I
other?
have a question.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. How do we check the attendance? Like-
Well, the
like we
monitor
don't
will take
have-
the attendance. Based on your, you will log in the a meeting room. So
Yeah.
the monitor will take the attendance. Say if you are on the class.
So we don't have like teacher mate, right?
No.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? And also, I will forward some, documents and files to you for your reference when you are preparing for the presentation. Okay. So if you have no questions, we'll just stop here. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have
you,
a good night.
Professor.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Professor.
Sure.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor.